Funky side guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5 and Music Team Network on the Lex YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire on Roy Bleckert on all the aforementioned ones on that. And we'll join the Mighty Met KMET as we usually do at the bottom of the hour at 5:30. Lots of raucous stuff going on. Mamdani doubles down on collectivism, communism, further control. He wants to rule you in New York City. I hope you guys survive it. I rather doubt you won't, or you're not going to like what you voted for on the collectivism. We'll have the complete updates on the phony fraudster, Tampon Timmy, the retard walls in Minnesota, operation going on in Homeland Security that is just going to blow your mind of what's been going on in Minnesota. It's just absolutely crazy. Man was run over multiple times at El Sobrante and Cahelco Road out in the Lake Matthews area. Some of the people didn't even stop, it appears, or from eyewitness accounts. Absolutely tragic story. Catherine Herridge releases more on how CBS News, the big I, has just been, it's a propaganda network. They told Elon Musk basically to F off on an interview. That and much, much more coming up on the show. And we slowed this down for you. Wild video shows a speeding car crashing through a wall, going airborne, ejects the driver into the pool. Reports have it was a young lady who was suspected of DUI, but here, let's see. And we slowed this down on the YouTube so you could see it. This is at quarter speed, because if you see it at full speed, it's really hard to watch. There it is crashing through. There you see, you barely see her flying in. Now you see her floating in the pool as the car's over on the left side. See right in this area? That's the woman. So you can make her out. She's coming to the surface there. You can see more of her flailing around a little bit in the pool. But again, there you see her kind of getting up. She's in the shallow end of the pool, fortunately. So she's able to kind of get herself up. She's trying to get herself up when the owner of the home comes out and tries to do that. There it is again, kaboom, at a quarter speed. And you see the car flipping. Looks like it hits the house and then winds up of that. It's a really, really, really stunning scene there on Fox deal. Let's see if we can get the playback speed back up to normal, and we'll replay the report for you. Here we go. Let's see,
An apparent drunk driving incident shared by our sister station in California as well. You can see a car crashing into a fence and then going airborne into a backyard. The driver was ejected, ended up in the pool. The driver was able to get out with a little help. This was actually in Nevada. This is south of Las Vegas. Police say the woman driving was speeding moments before the crash. A tow truck and a crane had to get her out. Homeowner says it's going to cost about $300,000 to fix everything. No word on what charges that driver could face.
That was a heck of a scene over there on that in south. I think it was Henderson, Nevada. Just absolutely stunning. As you see, there you see it coming through the wall as she's just getting ready to be ejected out of the car and fall into the pool. Absolutely stunning scene there in South loss of wages. What a deal. We wouldn't have to pay nobody under about $600,000 would have to pay federal income tax. Let me repeat that. No one making under about $600K a year would be paying income tax if there was no fraud. This is a charge made up by muckety-muck Harvard, Yale, whatever, PhD economist. The red line is where income taxes should be the no fraud line. We collect about $2.4 billion, or roughly half, or roughly 40% of the 6.5 or whatever it is trillion dollar budget is collected in income taxes. So you take into account the $1.5 billion or $1.5 trillion in fraud. And you have essentially, because that's where everybody else pays, those making about under $600,000 a year pay for the fraud. Mind you, I think it's about 1% or 1%, 1.5% of the income taxpayers are paying for the almost roughly a third of all income taxes. So this whole tax the rich, they're already being taxed the rich. Again, if we didn't have no fraud, the no fraud line, there it is. Those making under $600,000 a year would not be paying any federal income taxes. So this whole democratic socialism, mandammy, BS crap started by Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the whole crap, and Hitler and stuff. We'll get into this in a bit. Susan Shelley had a good one, a video on this and some more stuff. But this whole completely idiot, and all you that elected, oh, you're mad at Donald Trump because he just didn't wave a magic wand and fix everything in the first year. So you're going to recoil and vote yourself into slavery, because that's what you're doing. If the Mandami phenomena spreads across the rest of the United States in 26, it's pretty much over, because they will take all your income. That's what collectivism is all about. The government, the few oligarchs in the government decide how all the money is spent. It's not everybody gets equal. It's they decide. And when they decide, when they grab your money and decide how it's going to be spent, how do you think it's going to go? Listen to this dork.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. If our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it.
The solidarity he's fostering is him and his ilk being in control of every aspect of your life. Mark it down. That's what's coming. The great Thomas Sowell put it like this. What do the poor most need? They need to stop being poor. Duh. And how can that be done on a mass scale? Except by the economy that creates vastly more wealth, question mark. Yet the political left, Democratic Socialists, Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders, the king of the Democratic Socialists. Yet the political left has long had a remarkable lack of interest in how wealth is created. As far as they are concerned, wealth exists somehow, and the only interesting question is how to redistribute it. That's what Mamdani and collectivism is all about. It's a government process that winds up in failure for 98.7% of the people, and 1.3% of the people control everything. And the rest are slaves. You want to be the 21st century slaves? Keep walking down this path with ding-dongs like Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, and the Socialist Democrats. That's just the way it is. We'll get into Susan Shelley's YouTube from 12 years ago when she ran for assembly, and more of that stuff, and of course the fraud going on in Minnesota. What Homeland Security came out with today will just absolutely blow your mind. 1,000% it's going to blow your mind. We're going to get into that. First, we're going to take you to Operation Twin Shield. It was about 2 months ago. For all the ones that are crowing out there, the Mamdani voters, especially the youngsters, they were all teed off because Trump didn't fix everything in 2 months. And they're going to recoil and vote for the Mamdanis of the world and whatever. This is what you're going to... This is what you ignored. Well, you couldn't wait to rush to the polls to elect a dictator that's going to run your life. There is no free, as Thomas Sowell said. The rich are already paying. Those making over 600 grand are already paying the federal income taxes if you take the fraud out. You, the dummy, you, the one busting your ass with a lunch pail toting to work every day, are the ones paying for the fraud. This, again, should, by all accounts, make your blood boil. Operation Twin Shield from a couple months ago.
Welcome. We will now start the press conference for Operation Twin Shield. I'll turn it over to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Etlow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Joseph Edlow. I'm the Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I'm incredibly pleased to be here today to announce the successful conclusion to Operation Twin Shield, an enforcement effort of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services with absolutely invaluable support from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the FBI, and DEA. I especially want to thank St. Paul Field Office Director Samuel Olson from ICE for being here, as well as Abel Vecino from the FBI for joining us up here today. I also want to thank Jeff Brecht and Mike Kennard from FDNS, as well as Michael Borgen from USCIS. And also want to thank Bill McGinn, our FDNS chief in Kansas City, who was on the ground during the entirety of the operation. Since September 19th, officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens. And
Are you pissed off yet? For all those, again, that voted for the Mondamis and whatever, that we're going to save you or they're going to do that. No, they're going to continue to rip you off. They're going to continue to destroy your country. They're going to continue to let unfettered, illegal immigration run rampant. You didn't hear about this 24/7. You didn't hear this on your little TikTokers or 3x5 screens. You didn't hear that there on the idiot Mockingbird media. But this is what U.S. Customs Enforcement, ICE, FBI were doing in Minnesota. This is what they uncovered under the Trump administration. Put it out a couple months ago. No, you couldn't wait to get fast enough down there to vote for Mandami. Or run down Trump because he's not doing exactly what you want. Hey, I'd like to see some more stuff done too. But I'm not sitting in the hot seat. I'm not looking at the whole thing, and neither are you. But you get these con artists, in my opinion, sit out there in these social media networks and whatever and broadcast. For every good Nick Shirley, there's 9,432 ding-dongs out there putting stuff out. Now, thank goodness Nick Shirley and Musk did that, and we'll get with the Catherine Heritage situation, CBS and Musk, here in a bit. But again, this should be
organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases. Some of the other troubling cases that our officers found. In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests.
Let's get to the marriage fraud thing. Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman from there that's been perpetuating and putting legislation in to further this Somali and fraud all across the board. Didn't she marry her brother to get him in the country? That first, polygamy has long been persona non grata on the books for what? Over a century. Isn't that committing a crime? The caterwauling of all these yo-yos of doing this, but again, we've not been getting this message out in strong enough force that people are paying attention.
He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin. In another, an individual admitted to obtaining a fake death certificate in Kenya for just $100 to prove he was no longer married. In reality, his wife is alive, living here in Minneapolis, and is the mother of 5 of his children. And incidentally, he has another wife living in Sweden with whom he has an additional 3 children. In another case,
and again, everybody's going, Trump's not doing anything. this press conference when this was 2 months ago in Minnesota. Tim Poultney, who was the last Republican governor, I think about 20 years ago in Minnesota. Democrats have had full control of Minnesota for 20 or 30 years, just like they have in California, and pretty much New York, and Illinois. I love this. He calls Tim Walz the fraud father. Here's former governor of Minnesota, the last Republican, Tim Poultney, on with Finnerty on Newsmax. Here we go.
I don't believe Governor Walz should serve another term, which would be his third term. He's announced that. I think he should step aside for that purpose. The problem with him and him alone resigning is that the person who would become governor is his lieutenant governor.
Does that still work?
I think if he does run for re-election, the main issue against him is going to be his role as the fraud father, if you will, in these cases. And of course, he's going to try to flip the script and make it about a referendum on Trump for the reasons you cited and others. But people in
the fraud father, I love that. It's absolutely fabulous. But like you said, they're going to try to flip it. They're trying, all these guys that claim to be on your side or that, or running these little YouTube thingies or all of that. A lot of them jumped on the Charlie Kirk bandwagon. They're trying to milk that for their own personal gain. All across the board. And I'm not singling anybody out, but you can go and see who they are. They're trying to frame this as Trump's fault. Everything's Trump's fault. He's not doing this. He's not hard on immigration. He's not bringing prices down. Well, he's leveled them off in a year. Crime is down to less than it has been. The borders have been completely freaking closed. They were busting people for this stuff in Minnesota 2 months ago. And yes, like I said, I'd love to see things moving at a faster pace. But sometimes this stuff isn't possible. It takes time to build these cases and get them going and stuff. And I'm all for replacing Pam Bondi. I think she's totally incompetent for the job. Some ding-a-ling was out there saying, oh, put Carrie Lake in. Carrie Lake is not even an attorney. Oh, she'd be better than Matt Gaetz was. At least Matt Gaetz is a freaking attorney. These guys are destroying, in my opinion, their own credibility. And if they're doing that, they're either committing, stupid suicide, mental suicide, basically, or they're part of the other side. They're misdirection artists. Here's more from Newsmax on the Somali Learning Center that became the Quality, or very close ties to the Quality Learning Center. And that's what their sign says.
The place that's really gone viral is the Learning Center, the Quality Learning Center, which is right behind me here. That was spelled Learning Center. The sign was spelled wrong, so I decided to look into this building to see what's happened here in the past. Here's some of that video from Nick Shirley. He was going around town looking into alleged fraud and looking into daycares. According to him, this gets a lot of government funding. A simple Google Street View history shows there was once another child care center here years ago called the Salama Child Care Center. And it appears this location was raided by the FBI before. under that name. This is video from a local news outlet from a decade ago. According to a 2017 federal news release, the child care provider connected to the Salama Child Care Center is Fauja Sheikh Ali. A state auditor document on fraud notes a federal grand jury said she stole about $1.4 million by claiming payment for dozens of children who were never in their care. According to reports, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison.
What's the allegation today with the Quality Leering Center, as the sign says? Where are the kids? Go to these places, where are the kids? How many are here in your building today that you can document?
It also happens to be the same last name as someone who, according to county records, is associated with the building today. While no direct fraud has been announced or reported for Quality Learning Center.
Well, no direct fraud, of course, but we can all put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. Now, that's some of the, instead of the broad that was on there from CNN that called up the place, oh, are you doing anything illegal? Well, no, click. One said, oh, yeah, we're totally legitimate. Oh, then the CNN report, click, oh, that's confirmation enough. They said they're good. The records are starting to come out. The NYP is full of all kinds of nice headlines. Minnesota multi-million-dollar daycare fraud reportedly stretches back to 2014. Saw scammers leave U.S. with $1 million pop in cash. You can fly legally with $1 million worth of cash. They were flying people from the U.S. back in 2014 with $1 million in cash into Somalia 12 years ago. We get this from Benny Johnson, the daycare in Ohio. The same people, the same names, blocked out windows. Multiple businesses with the same scam. More from the headlines from the NYP. HHS audit of 2012 found $16 million in improper child care payments to Minnesota, and millions more has been sent to state since. Mortifying moment, anti-Trump Minnesota mom suddenly cut speech after admitting fraud is bad. There's a lot of evidence. A ton of evidence. This is where it gets to the cuts to the chase. ABC, 3,100 employees. PMSNBC, 800 employees. CBS, 2,500 employees. CNN, 3,300. New York Times, 5,600. WAPO, 38. Associated Press, 42. Yet Nick and Dave could uncover what they seemingly could not. By Kevin Bass. I crunched the numbers. I made this map. States with no effective voter ID requirement average nearly 8 times more welfare benefits to illegal immigrants compared to states requiring ID verification. They are importing and paying illegals for votes, is his statement. And I don't see any evidence where he is wrong about that. That's why we need voter ID in this country We need it in California. Hopefully Carl DeMaio gets that proposition on the ballot. Because we desperately need voter ID. 8 times. 8 times more illegal immigrants getting welfare. That's money they're taking out of your pocket and putting it into an illegal immigrant's pocket. Plain and simple. No question about it. I don't know how much more of this we can take. You never know exactly where the breaking point is. But it's, if we don't turn this around, if we're going to go down the Mandami, Bernie Sanders, Socialist Democrat, collectivism, that failed. 1776, 97% of the people in the United States were going to give up and go back to King George because they tried collectivism and it was failing. Everybody's starving to death. Thank goodness George Washington and his 3% band of merry warriors said, screw that. And said, we're not doing stupid anymore. We're either going to give me liberty or give me death, as Patrick Henry said. More confirmation. Catherine Heritage, who was fired by CBS, who was trying to bring out the Hunter Biden laptop story.
A number of topics under discussion. They didn't go as far as we had hoped. But at the end of the day, this opportunity to
remember, the Twitter files came out just after Musk bought Twitter, and it was showing how they were suppressing, free speech, and anybody they didn't like got deplatformed.
Interview Elon Musk was developing. So I went to the CBS executives, and I said, "This is the opportunity that we have." He's saying, "I want to do it live and on my platform." He's one of the most influential human beings on the planet. And the reaction from the executives was, well, we can't do it live. And I was like, what do you mean we can't do it live? I was like, well, we don't know what he's going to say. I was like, well, I'm thinking, isn't that the point of journalism? You don't know what the person's going to say?
That is not the point of their journal. They are not journalists. They are not trying to get the truth of the story or the opinion or what Musk is thinking. They want to cut it up. Like in the case of Trump or Musk, if they don't like what he's saying, they'll make him look bad. If it's Comrade Kamala Harris or whomever, they'll cut it up. They'll cut up her word salads to make it try to sound 1% coherent, which is very difficult.
Well, it has to be taped. We have to have the ability to edit it. It has to be on our platform. We have to control the platform. We talked at one point about whether we could do it sort of like a simulcast between the streaming network and maybe X. But everything just got shut down. It's one of the biggest interviews you could ever have. I felt so ashamed, frankly, that I never went back to Elon Musk and said, listen, they want to do it, but they've set all these conditions on it. I couldn't do that. This is someone whose DNA.
You should not do it. They only want to do that to control the narrative. He who controls the narrative wins 98.7% of the time. Royism 101.
DNA is free speech. And how do you tell someone who's committed to free speech that your network can only do it taped and only if they edit it and it can only be on their platform. I couldn't go back to him with that.
Of course. Because that's not what it was. Catherine Heritage was top-notch journalist, ethics, tried to do the right thing. They said what? You know what? As Donald Trump would say, you're fired. They're not anywhere close to being honest. They're propaganda tools paid for by the U.S. government through the stealing of your money. And they're all saying, no, it's a rich man's fault, or we're going to get it from them. Shut up. We now have the statistics as we brought you them today. No fraud. No one making under $600,000 per year would be paying income taxes.
We eventually broadcast a story about the Hunter Biden laptop after the midterm elections in 2022. We commissioned a forensic review. I got a copy of the laptop data. I have it here still. I went to a lot of effort to get the cleanest copy of the laptop data, the same data that was provided to the FBI, because I didn't want to have any professional journalistic risk for CBS News. I wanted this thing to be totally locked down. When we did the story, we did it after the midterms. I argued against that because it was ready before the midterms. And my training is that you should always do the story when it's ready to go. You should not be dictated by the political cycle. Once we got the laptop story on the morning news, I felt that there was so much there that we could still do. For example, in the text messages, there's unfortunately the use of the N-word, the liberal use of the N-word. And I thought this was worthy of a story, but I was told that it was not something that interested CBS News. Then I asked for a forensic review of the lab.
You could bet your bottom dollar the farm and everything else. If that was somebody they didn't like Trump or Rand Paul or somebody like that, they'd have been they'd have rented airplanes with that. Oh, Donald Trump said.
And we found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is.
Implicating 5 emails of Joe Biden. Oh, no, we can't do that.
The emails. But that was going to be a years-long process. So there was no way. So there were a lot of reasons I was told not to do it, not to pursue it. I spent a lot of my time at CBS following the Hunter Biden story. And one of the things that really struck me is this kind of disconnect. I didn't understand how a senior executive like George Cheeks could tell me that this was a high priority for the network and for his boss. And yet the executives at CBS News, show producers, anchors could refuse that. I came to the conclusion that they must have felt that they were more powerful than George Cheeks, which was astonishing to me. I'd never worked at a place where a directive from the top would be so defied.
It wasn't. Their policy was to try to get dirt on Trump or disprove the whole Hunter Biden laptop was fake, which it wasn't. It was perfectly real. CBS knew it. Catherine Heritage knew it. Miranda Devine in the New York Post, which actually published it, knew it and published it 2 weeks before the election. It was a coordinated effort because the government said, and this is the danger of the Mandami crap. You want them controlling every frickin' thing? You will be Just give up life as you know it. No car, no home. No, I decide I'm going to go to Disneyland with the kids on Saturday. Or watch the football game. You will only be able to watch on TV whatever propaganda the government wants to feed you. Go look at China or Russia or any other tin-horn dictator, Cuba. This stuff is absolute imperative that we get the information out that shows people exactly what's going on, how to avoid the current trajectory where we're heading.
1 minute, Roy.
And get this ship straightened back out. We'll get into when we come back on KMET, we'll get more into Susan Shelley's part on collectivism and all the stuff that Mandami and Bernie Sanders and AOC all want to do. They want to control every aspect of your frickin' life. And if you let them, well, then we all deserve what we get if we let this continue. We can't keep hammering our side of it just because, they're not, just because they didn't snap their fingers and make everything magically better.
30 seconds.
That's not I know that's the way a lot of you probably under 40 were taught the world works. Unfortunately, they told you a lot. And it's about time reality smacks you in the face. And it's going to one way or the other. Just depends.
Here we go. 10 seconds.
For those who support America, patriotswitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Net 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience on the UFB Network, Rumble, X, YouTube. Type in iNewsWire Roy Bleckert. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face on there. You can get all our archives. You can go back and criticize or tell anything that's going on of that. We love the debate. Get some interaction in there. Tell me where you think of the outside of the stuff is wrong. I mean, we all love the cheerleading, and hey, you're doing great. But we'll never get to a point of getting everybody rowing in the same boat if we don't sit down and discuss it. We ran through a lot. We started with the collectivism. We'll finish up with that. And Mandami, the latest. More fraud allegations up the kazoo in Minnesota. People are talking it started out at $1 billion, then $9 billion, then 20, then 30. I'm going to say the Minnesota fraud is going to be $100 billion if they get to the bottom of it, and hopefully they do. But we'll get, we'll have more of that. Catherine Heritage, the CBS, Columbia Broadcasting Systems. I bet you most people don't know what that stands for. Reporter Catherine Heritage, who had the Hunter Biden laptop story and more, and Joe Biden implicated in emails he had, and they killed it. On top of that, they killed a interview with Elon Musk because it wasn't in their studio where they could control it and they could edit it. This is the whole deal. They're incrementally controlling steps of every aspect of your life. Are we going to let them do it? It's absolutely crazy. This was the lead story, so it's on the KMET video, so that Wild video shows a speeding car going airborne ejects driver into a backyard pool. We found the YouTube story, and we were able to actually slow it down and do a better job of where you can actually see. This is in Henderson, Nevada, I think just a little bit south of Las Vegas. Here it is. You're going to see the car. A woman was allegedly drunk, speeding, crashes through the brick wall, is ejected out of the car. The car winds up against a house. She winds up in the pool. Let's see if we can slow this down. See, there you can see it. Kaboom. There you see her floating, like right in here. There you see her floating. She's in the shallow end, luckily. She's trying to get up and out, and then the homeowner actually comes by and shows her. But that's at a quarter speed, so you can actually see more of the car crashing through her, flying out of the car into the pool. And then that's absolutely stunning story out of South Las Vegas. Get back into the whole Mandami collectivism BS that he said he's going to run. He's going to deliver on the Bernie Sanders Democratic Socialist BS. Susan Shelley, who we've had on almost the whole 9 years I've been on here, broadcasting weekly, usually on a Wednesday. The great editorial writer and columnist for Southern California News Group and vice president of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. 2014, she ran for the assembly. Dang near in a special election, dang near won it in San Fernando Valley, the North LA area. But she was talking about collectivism back there 12 years ago. This is what she had to say.
And that just sounds sweet when you say it in a casual way to someone over a drink. Everyone has needs. Everyone has ideas of how other people don't need everything they have, and it just seems fair. And it can be described in a very sweet way, that the individual really should be sacrificed for the collective, for the group, for the welfare of everybody. And many societies throughout history have agreed with this idea. This is the way everything used to be organized. This is sacrifice. This is child sacrifice. The Incas, 500 years ago. That is a beautiful 10-year-old girl who was dragged up to the top of a mountain in the Andes, fed alcohol, hit on the back of the head, and left to die of exposure. The practice of child sacrifice for the good of the group, for the good of the community. They really believed that. They believed that sacrificing this child to the gods of the mountain when there was an earthquake or a drought or...
This is what collectivism, democracy, is all about. Whatever, whether it be 50% plus one, the king dictator, whatever they decide goes. You sacrifice a 10-year-old girl to the gods because you are a tutti-frutti, ding-dong, evil, disgusting society. That happens. And don't say that it doesn't. It has. That's recorded history. That's what happens under democratic socialist. Tin horn dictator, communist, socialist, whatever goofy, nice sounding term. Oh, it sounds so lovely, as Susan Shelley says. Oh, we're going to put everything in a pile and everybody's just going to do it. It doesn't work. It's never worked, never will work. Like Thomas Sowell said. What poor people need is to stop being poor and do the things that are going to create wealth for you, your family, whomever, so you're not poor. And the only way you do that is expanding economic wealth. Collectivism shrinks that.
Famine would make things better for the collective group, for the good of society. And they took this 10-year-old girl and many others to the top of a mountain and left her to die. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. The sacrifice of the individual for the good of the community. This is a very visual expression of it, but it's not the only expression of it. The whole world was organized this way until the 18th century. In the 18th century, something new happened. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This was a revolutionary concept. The idea that a country would be founded on the rights of the individual, not on the welfare of the society or the good of the group, no matter how you define the group, by sect, by tribe, by religion, by state, by country. The individual person has rights. And
the individual, and this is what George Washington, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, James Madison, Andrew Jackson, Patrick Henry, and the list goes on, understood. The 3 percenters, 3%. In 1776. That's from the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because we were experiencing, everybody decided we were going to be in the early 1700s, oh, we're going to do collectives. We're going to put everything in a pile, and we're going to all divide it up equally, and everybody's going to live. The wealth is going to grow. And they were grinding themselves into the ground. 97% in 1776 on July 4, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, 97% of the U.S. population wanted to give up and go back to King George because they were starving to death under collectivism. You, 250 years later, we in America are benefiting from the very small minority, 3%, that said, not no, but hell no. 250 years ago, in a couple days, George Washington, on a Christmas Day attack, crossed the Delaware and said, we're going to kick the living crap out of these communistic King George dictators from England. We ain't playing this game anymore. We want our people not only just to survive, we want them to thrive. And we're willing to lay everything we got on the line to do it. Now we're coming back full circle, or we're trying to, or there's been a lot of forces trying to do it here 250 years later. And if we do, we are absolutely, as it's built up today, we will be known as some of the worst people that ever walked the earth, because we gave away the moon and the stars for gloom, despair, and agony on me.
the purpose of government is to secure these rights. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's a completely new way to look at things. That changed everything. This is from the Declaration of Independence. And these ideas come from Blackstone's Fundamental Rights, from English law. This is Sir William Blackstone.
We, the people, the majority, need to get our collective heads out of our rear end. Here's the definition, and I didn't even know this. The second part of this, freedom, the definition. The quality or state of being free as the absence of necessity, coercion, constraint in choice or action. Liberation. Liberation from slavery or restraint from the power of another, independence. Now, Susan Shelley is quoted in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, an example of how to use a word in a sentence, and here it is. They quoted her use of collectivism is the belief that everything produced really belongs to everybody and that the government job is to distribute it fairly. And fairly into failure. Governments cannot do that. Thomas Sowell explained that. We shouldn't. If we have any sort of brains left. Thomas Sowell's 90, one of the greatest minds that we've ever had walking the earth. Again, we're going to read it again. What do the poor need most? They need to stop being poor. And how can that be done on a mass scale? Except by an economy that creates vastly more wealth? Question mark. It can't. Yet the political left, read Democrat Socialists, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mamdani, Joe Biden, Comrade Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, Corey Jackson, Baby Jesus Mayor Ulysses Cabrera, Moreno Valley, and on, has long had a remarkable lack of interest in how wealth is created. Because if you give them this concept, the whole collectivism, democratic socialist, tin horn dictator socialist, whatever, goes down in flames. Because as far as they're concerned, Thomas Sowell says, wealth exists somehow. Somehow. Oh, it just falls out of the sky. Alice in Wonderland. You just dream it and it happens. Build it and they will come. It just somehow fell out of the sky. And, as Thomas Sowell says, the only interesting question is how to redistribute it. That means stealing it from somebody else, from you, and giving it to somebody else. That's what this means. That's what they're selling you. Lock, stock, and barrel. And if we buy into this, we're absolutely out of our flippin' minds. Some of the more charged Susan Shelley had it. It is necessary that the individual should come to realize that his own ego is of no importance, and in comparison with the existence of his nation, that the position of the individual ego is conditioned solely by the interests of the nation as a whole, and that above all unity of the nation spirit are worth far more than the freedom of the spirit of the individual. This state of mind, which subordinates the interests of the ego to the conservation of the community, is really the first premise of every truly human culture. We understand only the individual's capacity to make sacrifices for the community or his fellow man. Go back to Susan Shelley's, and this is Adolf Hitler in 1933. Go back 500 years to the 1600s and the Incas. Well, they decided the gods wanted a 10-year-old girl sacrificed, and they did. They tortured her and left her to die on a mountain. Because her life was of no importance. Her individual ego was trash because it didn't fit the perceived interests of the community. That is more important than you. The absolute evil of what's being talked about is beyond stunning. It's really, really, really imperative that we start getting to some of the principles. These are the Federalist Papers that were written before 1776. This is James Madison. This is more Susan Shelley's great finds. James Madison explaining how a republic would check mischief of factions, a rage for paper money, for the abolition of debts. Oh, we're just going to forgive student loans or whatever. For an individual, for equal division of property. We're going to put it all. Oh! Gretchen has a bigger house than me. Well, why don't we just go over and take it? No, they're going to put everyone in the same size little 10 by 10 cubicle. Or for any other improper or wicked project will be less apt to pervade the whole body of the Union rather than the particular member of it. Federalist Paper number 10. James Madison was telling you there. He was making the exact case of why they were fighting, why they had to take on King George, and why they had to make the individual supreme and basically untouchable for everyone to not just survive, but to thrive. James Madison rejected pure democracy or collectivism or all this other crap. More in Federalist 10. And such democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security, rights, or property, and have in general been as short as their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Theoretic politicians who have patronized the species of government have erroneously supposed that by reducing mankind to a perfect equality in their political rights, they would at the same time be perfectly equalized and assimilated in their possessions, in their opinions, and their passions. Meaning you can only think one way, you can only be told what the government says, or what the dictator says, or what Mandami says. James Madison in Federalist 10 explaining how the Republic would check mischief factions. As a rage for paper money, the abolition of debts for equal division of property, or any other improperty or wicked project, be less apt to pervade the whole body of the Union rather than the particular member itself. Rereading that again. Because that's where it's at. He's telling you. This is why the Federalist Papers should be taught in school, like they used to be when old curmudgeons like me went to school. We studied this kind of stuff in school. You'd be lucky if 1 out of 100 kids today in K through 12, or let's say 40 and under, even know what the hell a Federalist paper is, much less read it. They probably have no idea who Thomas Paine is, James Madison, Ben Franklin, Andrew Jackson, who were most of the ones that wrote the Federalist Papers. They probably never heard of Thomas Paine's book, Common Sense. And that's where we're failing society. If we don't get this stuff together, if we can quit tearing down the ones that are least trying to help, this is your future. We're going to circle 180 degrees back to where we were. Back to gloom, despair, and agony on me. The choice is ours. I mean, we've gotten some reprieves. We now got the ability to put this stuff out there and get it. Look, YouTube was suppressing Nick and David. It wasn't until it hit X that it exploded. If it was left to the YouTubes or whatever, or the Facebooks or whatever, you would not have heard of Nick Shirley or David or anybody else bringing this stuff out. It's, I don't know. I hope we make the right choices. Because if we don't, well, don't want to think too hard on how that's going to turn out. It's a revolting situation. If it does, let's not do that, please. This was a mind bog. Show how desensitized, and I believe this is a lot of how the desensitization, they want you to see people as less than human. This was on Cahelco Road by El Sobrante over in the Lake Matthews area, south of Riverside. Body left in the roadway. Multiple cars roll over the victim in the Lake Matthews horror. But several people run over this guy. Some people finally stopped. This happened on New Year's Eve. Right here in the Inland Empire. This is what we're living. And this is the dangerous aspect of this stuff. This is why we got to get our badass on in 2026, because that's the only way we're stopping it. We got to put our foot down, say not no, but hell no. We're not doing stupid anymore. End of story, fait accompli, full stop, period, as Goofball Gavin says. Boy, that irritates. The arrogance to say that. Man, it's a new year. We better get after it. That's all I got to say. That's all we'll say for this week. Mandatory, you're back here 20 or 71 hours live. You're the best darn show in the world. Till then, see ya.
The preceding was a paid program.
All right, Roy. Have a good weekend.
You got it.
Talk to you Monday.
You got it. We'll see you.